So you want to write a nonfiction novel. Well, before you write that nonfiction novel, you need to familiarize yourself with the different genres of nonfiction. Once you familiarize yourself with the different subgenres of nonfiction, it will make it much easier for you to write that nonfiction novel. First, I want to define what is nonfiction. So nonfiction is when you write something that's based on a true story, and it's not something that you made up. So let's get to it. What are the 6 types of nonfiction? Nonfiction literary work, and so this article is written by Bonnie Wagner Stauffer, April 17, 2018. And she titled her article, Do You Know Your Nonfiction? Understanding the 6 types of nonfiction before you write. So nonfiction is a literary work that is based in fact. It covers more than one genre or subgenre, with so many potential subjects to cover and so many possible ways to approach nonfiction writing. It's important to understand the differences between these subgenres. This way you can better direct your work and flesh out its ultimate potential. Here are 6 types of nonfiction writing, and these are some of the most famous examples of each. A memoir. A memoir is a historical account that is written based on personal knowledge or special sources. Memoirs aren't necessarily told in chronological order, allowing much room for creative retelling. Some famous examples of memoirs include Anthony Bourdain's Kitchen Confidential and Elizabeth Gilbert's Eat, Pray, and Love. I read Eat, Pray, and Love. That is an excellent book. Under an Afghan Sky, written by my colleague Melissa Fung. Although the diary of a young girl is more of a diary than a standard memoir, it can also be loosely considered a memoir for Anne Frank's specific retelling of the German invasion. Some of Ingham's books, soon to be famous, include 4 Fridays and Yvonne Caputo's Flying with Dad. The subgenre memoir and biography and autobiography often get confused as being one and the same. The main differences between them are the scope and focus of the book. Memoirs are often about a single important experience, a break it or make it business deal, a detrimental career choice, a life-changing experience. The length of the book doesn't have anything to do with the memoir versus the autobiography debate. So when you write a memoir, you're writing about one event and how that one event in your life changed your life. So let's take Eat, Pray, and Love. In that book, that main character had a very painful divorce. So that was the one event that changed her life. And so she had to find a way to heal from that divorce. And so she went to Italy to eat pasta, and then she went to India to pray and meditate, and then she went to Indonesia where she met the love of her life. And so that was how she healed from a very painful divorce. And so that is a memoir where you talk about one event in your life that changed your life. Like a memoir, autobiography, like a memoir, the writer of an autobiography is also the subject of it. However, instead of zooming in on one important event in a person's life, the autobiography is the complete retelling of a person's life. Autobiographies begin from a person's childhood, continuing up to the writer's present. Autobiographies are considered one of the most intimate subgenres of nonfiction. Influential people often write autobiographies as a way of sharing their story with the world and inspiring others. Businessmen, artists, politicians, and influencers lay bare their secrets and reveal previously unknown truths about their experiences and their life. High-profile examples of autobiography include Malala Yousafzai's I Am Mala and Nelson Mandela's Long Walk to Freedom and Tina Fey's Bossy Pants. The only one I know out of this is Nelson Mandela's Long Walk to Freedom, where he talks about the 25 years he spent in jail and how he, when he got out of jail, he oversaw the abolition of apartheid, and he was the president of South Africa. So that was the long walk. So that means that in that book, he goes over his Nelson Mandela's entire life, leading to the moment where he became president of South Africa. So unlike a memoir, which focuses on one event, like Elizabeth Gilbert's divorce in Eat, Pray, and Love, in an autobiography, that's a retelling of the entire lifespan of that individual and how that individual, by retelling the entire lifespan of that individual, how he got to where he is today. And so that's an autobiography. A biography is a lot like an autobiography, only the actual story doesn't concern the writer. Biography authors are not related to the subject. Often, a famous person's story encourages them to repaint a popular personality to bring him or her closer to the readers. There can be more than one biography on a single person. So basically, when you have an autobiography, that's like if Professor H writes a story about Professor H. I'm the one. I experienced it, so I'm writing about my life. In a biography, okay, you're writing about somebody else's life. In other words, Professor H, she's going to write a story about her mother. That's a biography. If I want to write about my life, Professor H, that's an autobiography. So that's the difference between a biography and an autobiography. So if you're going to write about your own life, that's an autobiography. If you're going to write about, retell someone else's life to make it more current to today's audiences, that's a biography. And so a biography, that's why what she meant by the actual story doesn't concern the writer. In other words, if I write about my mother and I didn't lead the same lives. Similar lives, but not the same. So often a famous person's story, so if you have a famous person like Abraham Lincoln, so many different writers can write about Abraham Lincoln in order to modernize Abraham Lincoln's life story to a modern audience. There can be more than one biography on a single person. For Barack Obama alone, there are about 10 biographies available, each focusing on a different aspect of his life. The most popular ones include David Caro's Rising Star and David Marani's Barack Obama: The Story. Biographies still offer plenty of opportunity for creativity. Biographers have to watch out for style and direction. These two things can separate their work from other existing biographies and can tell someone's story from a brand new perspective. So if I wanted to write about my Aunt Helen and her experiences during World War II, then I'm writing a biography. I'm not writing an autobiography because I wasn't born during the time of World War II. I find that the biggest irony in my aunt's life was that in December of 1941, my aunt went to Hawaii to escape World War II. So she arrived in Hawaii on December 6th, 1941. And she thought that once she got to Hawaii, because you have to understand that in China, World War II had been going on since in the 1930s, the early 30s. So up to that point, 1941, my aunt had undergone World War II for like 10 years. So she gets a job as a nurse in Hawaii and arrives and sees a beautiful tropical paradise and thinks to herself, I've finally escaped World War II. Well, we all know what happened the next day after she arrived on December 7th, 1941. Remember, she was on vacation. She thought that, oh, I've escaped the war. Because on December 7th, 1941, and my aunt is in bed, and she's sleeping, and she's like, why do I hear Japanese planes? No, I'm in Hawaii. No way the Japanese are here. They're all the way in Japan. They're in China. I'm in Hawaii. Only to hear a big boom, explosion, and then to realize that the war followed her to Hawaii. And she ended up having to serve. Anyway, so that's a big irony. Someone who's trying to escape the war and ends up, well, anyway, that's a biography where if I ever have the time to write about it, I will. Expository. An expository nonfiction reveals the truth and brings light to important issues. So an expository nonfiction tells you certain, like if you're going to write about climate change, or you're going to write about something that's true based on facts, climate change is going to destroy the world, or something like that. Or so it brings so expository, just like an expository essay. So expository nonfiction is when you write about something scientific or something medical. So for example, Jenny Nordberg, The Underground Girls of Kabul, details her experience as a journalist with Afghan girls and the phenomenon of Baka Pash. As with other expository books, she reveals her subject's daily routine and brings to light an unknown problem in present-day Afghanistan. Expository often poses a problem for inexperienced writers. As a form of journalistic nonfiction, it requires a deep understanding with the subject. Writers who come in contact with controversial subjects must approach their writing with sensitivity and understanding. If you're not conscientious with your story, you run the risk of looking insensitive, naive, or both. Prescriptive nonfiction, that is self-help books, how to lose weight, how to get rich. Enter any bookstore and you'll see that self-help or self-improvement books are always among the best-selling books. It's because they're the most relatable and actionable books out of all the nonfiction subgenres. Everyone encounters problems. Not everyone can hire a private life or a business coach or make significant changes on their own. Self-help books allow people to improve what they're lacking. It doesn't have to be something as big as drug addiction or getting over PTSD. The most popular self-help books are about finding motivation and improving skills, typically those that have to do with interpersonal skills. Business, leadership, management books all fall within this category. Check out Gwyn Tietro's In the Thick of It, or Lisa King's Just Do It, Just Do You. Famous self-help books include Spencer John's Who Moved My Cheese? Oh, I read that one, yeah. And Stephen R. Covey's The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. The paperback version has sold more than 15 million copies. And also Dale Carnegie, which is not listed here, How to Win and Influence People. Now that self-help book teaches you how to charm people and get people to want to help you, get people to want to be with you, and how to charm the socks off people. So that's another one is I can't think of it off the top of my head. But anyway, not so famous self-help books include our own Rock Your Business. Motivating people and helping them change their lives for the better are the main purposes behind prescriptive nonfiction. So another name for self-help books is prescriptive nonfiction, because in prescriptive nonfiction, it teaches you how to improve your life. It gives you a prescription of how to get rich, or how to be a more assertive person, or how to. So it is a how-to book. And if you're writing an essay, these are known as process essays, in case you're wondering. Narrative nonfiction. Considering how many subgenres can fall under narrative nonfiction, this almost feels like a genre of its own. You've got creative nonfiction, long-form journalism, and literary nonfiction, all falling under narrative nonfiction. So a narrative nonfiction is a well-structured story based on a true story. It's not a fictional story. And so in narrative nonfiction, you can follow the story structure of a fictional story. You could still have your triggering event, you could still have your rising action, you could still have your climax, you could still have your resolution and falling action. But the only difference is that this story is true. And so therefore, that's what makes it, and it's creative because of the way you structure the story structure. So therefore, hence the name narrative nonfiction. And it could be something that, and a lot of these genres overlap. So narrative nonfiction could also be something that happened to you or something. So they could overlap with autobiography. That's why they say that there's so many, that's why this author says that narrative nonfiction has so many different subgenres. But basically, a narrative nonfiction is a well-crafted, compelling, true story. It's narrative nonfiction writing because of the wide range of works that fall under creative nonfiction. And as a rule, as a writer, you'll have fewer rules to follow. Anything from crime thrillers to essays and interviews can fall under narrative nonfiction. What distinguishes narrative nonfiction from the other subgenres is its playfulness with language, while other subgenres like autobiography or the memoir, prescriptive, nonfiction are all written in the same manner. Narrative nonfiction is premised on the creativity of a narrative, so much so that it doesn't even feel like nonfiction. Okay, what does that mean? It means that you can have different kinds of story structures, and you can structure it with flashbacks, almost like writing for a movie or writing for a theater. And so therefore, but the only difference between this kind of writing and fictional writing is that it's a true story. So you can make a true story in the same style as a fictional story to make it easier for people to read, such as a true crime thriller is a narrative nonfiction. Which style of nonfiction writing is for me? Embarking on a nonfiction writing journey requires a lot of research and hard work, precisely because you're in the business of journalism and creative writing. To understand what subgenre will suit you best, figure out what stories you respond well to. Does telling other people's stories interest you? Or perhaps you would rather tell your own? Do you want to expose an unknown cultural phenomenon or inspire the world? Knowing what you're passionate about helps you find material that you can easily convert into a full-length and even potentially best-selling novel. So I hope that this video that goes over the different kinds of nonfiction, and I made this video because one of my students in my class said, oh, I want to write a nonfiction novel, but I'm not sure how, under topics for teaching in our week 5 ENGL 101 class. And so you got your wish. So here is a small little video on the different kinds of nonfiction that you can write. And it's kind of like pre-writing. You have to decide, well, first, what kind of nonfiction are you interested in? And then each kind, like memoir, autobiography, biography, expository, prescriptive, or narrative nonfiction, each has its own set of rules, and you have to choose which ones interest you. So good luck on finding which one you want to write about, and if you have any questions, feel free to email me.